All right, guys. Welcome to the last one of the year. Thank you so much for those of you who are not actually Datum people, because we far outnumber you today. But really happy to have you here. What we're going to spend today on is showing you some stuff, and by we I mean Zach GPT, which is Zach's new nickname, and also our friend B5, who's going to come later. But first, we're going to give you some updates and make sure you're with the latest news. So, Sylvia, I might call on you to tell me what I say wrong, but we're going to adjust some things about our monthly huddle, which has currently been a calendar invite from yours truly. Well, that's fine. Every time I change anything, like add a person, you all get notified, which is pretty stupid. So we're going to change that. And what we decided on was to lean into Luma. So Luma, you can see all of our stuff there. That's the good part. You can see if we're having a meetup near you, which we're going to be moving from New York to also come out a couple other cities next year. Uh, and you can subscribe to each one. The downside is you got to kind of like treat each event like an event. So you won't just kind of get a recurring thing unless we figure out how to do that. So just try it, see if it works. If you want to come, subscribe to the overall Datum Luma thing, and it should give you the information you need. Does that sound right, Sylvia? Did I do it?
Yeah, and I'm just gonna drop the one for January in the chat just so you guys have easy access to it right now.
Cool. Yep. We'll probably, get going as we ramp up in the new year into like treating more each of these like an event. And so it may shift the schedule a little bit, but probably have a little bit more advanced notice about what topics and guests we're bringing on, so you can decide if it's like worth your time to, eat lunch with us or whatever it is that you're doing. Okay. All right. So you may have seen, you may have not seen, but we're trying to keep the rhythm going in terms of um, announcing the stuff that we've actually completed and released on our roadmap. We announced our company a couple of weeks ago and some funding, and then we've been sort of playing catch up on releasing features as we finish them up. So we're going to see some of those today.
Hmm.
A couple of them are linked here. The changelog is on our website, also fed off of GitHub discussions, which is where we're trying to actually do the discussing stuff now. Um, Things are getting a little crazy in our core GitHub enhancement repos. So we've moved over sort of ideation and change logs and a bunch of other stuff to GitHub discussion. So feel free to check it out. One of the things that you won't see today, but you might experience over time, is our quota system, which was actually a fair amount of work. What do you know? Quotas are important. We rely upon them a lot. We're going to do a lot more work with that, but that's probably the big win for Milo over the last couple months, was to get our quota system not only built but exercised and in production for Datum Cloud. So check it out. All right. There's a video that you do not need to watch. This is for people who check out the presentation later, because we have a better thing than a video, right, Zach? We have Zach, who's going to talk about last month. If you were here, Zach was like, we're going to make DNS awesome and we're going to make domains awesome, literally making it. And here we are 3 4 weeks later, and I think he can show you that it works, or at least try to do that. Is that right?
That's right.
Cool, man. We'll take it over.
Yeah, so as Jacob said last time, we showed you the beautiful, fast hyperjet that we were building mid-flight. That hyperjet is now in flight without our hands holding it together. So this is, if you remember last time, we talked about splitting up domains and DNS zones. Domains are really just an asset that an organization or a project can have. Think of this like the centralized place where you want to know what is everything connected to, what are we using for host names, proxies, zones, etc. So domains is kind of where everything starts. As a company that's coming in and wants to transfer a bunch of domains over to Datum, this is kind of the first place that you would do that. Of course, if you want to go one by one and spend your day doing that and you have hundreds of thousands, you can do that. But we also tried to make it a little bit more simple for you by allowing you to either upload a CSV file containing a list of those domains, or simply add a comma separated list here as well. So that's what I'm going to show you. I'm just going to add a bunch of random test domains that I found online. I'm going to go ahead and click add. Cool. So it looks like since I didn't have any of those already, it added all of them. We do some deduping to, of course, make sure that we're not adding a bunch of things that we already keep track of. And then you'll see that shortly after we go and actually resolve all the registrar information, who is RDAP lookups, etc., and continue to populate that information correctly. Of course, this is probably the one that you'd want to keep an eye on is the expiration date, so that you don't lose the domains that you have come to love. Um, okay, so now that all of those domains
I
have
just
been,
want to know who owns example.com.
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, that's pretty great.
Yep. Um, okay, so I have a domain that I have already configured a DNS zone for. There's a couple ways that you could do this. If you wanted to just come in and start using Datum DNS today, you could simply come over to Datum DNS and add a zone yourself. What this would do is actually create a domain for you automatically, just so that you still have that single source of truth within the domains tab. But in this case, so yeah, if I wanted to like create one for example.com, I could click manage DNS right here. This would take me over and either create or take me to the correct view of that DNS zone. In this case, we haven't created anything for that, but I'll come down to mine that is currently hosted by Datum. And if I click on, sorry, this Zoom thing is in my way. Uh, Manage DNS, I'm actually taken directly to the DNS zone that is currently managed by Datum. So let me move the Zoom thing again. Do you guys see the little Zoom thing that's in my
No, we
face?
don't. We just see you trying to avoid it, but we're cool. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, All right, so we have like a high-level overview tab. This just kind of shows you a couple of the records that you have configured. Of course, the name servers that are currently set. You'll see that in this case, the host is Datum, and these are our Datum name servers. We can, of course, come to view these directly. First time a customer might be migrating these over, these will show a different value. After a user has changed that in the registrar, they would just come over here, click refresh name servers, and then we would automatically update for them. Otherwise, it would happen just on a regular interval, and they would see that eventually. In the DNS records section, this is where you have the full ability to customize all the records that we either program for you automatically. So in this case, the SOA and the NS records are created for you by default, and then you can customize them going forward, and then along with any other records that you so desire. So I'm just going to go ahead and add another A record here. Let's call it API, and then we're just going to give it 5 by 5. We'll see here that it currently got configured. Propagation, since we are pushing this out to, I think it's 18 pops, 18 edge locations today, takes a quick second or two, but it's pretty much real time as from our perspective. So yeah, that's really how easy it is to manage records. We have a bunch of different record types that we support out of the box. So you can see that here. We are currently actively working on how do we help make sure that you know what you're doing and that you're not breaking anything and that we can actually help prevent issues that could cause outages. Think of just, DNS level record RFC checks that we can make before you actually try to configure something that's problematic. Yeah, so these are the current records that we host today. There is plans to add a bunch more over the next coming weeks. But yeah, the hope is that we can cover all the ones that you would need in production. Uh,
Cool. Zach, just a quick question. Like you are you going to cover how you would, yeah, import or when you add a new
yep.
zone and it sniffs it out for you?
Yeah, totally. So, the common way of, bringing over, all of your records in bulk is typically via a bind file. So most providers allow you to export in bind format. If they don't, you might have to do some work on your side, or we can even potentially help you. What you didn't see here is, and I could probably even show this quickly. So if I go to example.com, we will actually try to discover an initial list of records for you. It's not exhaustive for obvious reasons, but we try to give you a good head start across kind of your MX, TXT, Quad A and A records to like give you a boost. But yeah, just another way of doing it. So yeah, and then if we wanted to do the import side of that bind file as well, you would just simply drag and drop that bind file and get all of your stuff brought in automatically. So a little bit easier than going one by one. And of course, you can download it as well. We hope you don't have to export out of Datum, but we did make that an option for you. Cool. Any questions on DNS and domains?
I have a
Yeah,
question
I
on
just want to
the.
make sure folks understand. Maybe you could spend a little bit more time, or people can raise questions about domains as an asset, and those domains don't need to be transferred. In this case, they are not transferred to Datum as a registrar, and doesn't even need to have records updated like name servers. It's a way to keep a resource, a programmatic resource of all your stuff, no matter kind of where it is. Clearly, that should make it easier for you to also use it with our service, but it's not the full extent of the purpose. Yeah.
Question on pops. I heard that we have like 18 pops right now. What sort of geography does that get us coverage for?
That's a great question. I think, is Evan on? He might be the best
I
to answer.
am, and although I've lost my camera, apparently, you
It's on
can
your
look at my
computer,
black.
Evan. It should be
Yeah,
on your
no,
computer.
I was
Okay.
recabling something. Yeah, we got let's see, it's mostly in the global north, but we still have Hong Kong, Japan. Is there a list on our website yet? I should make that. That's a good action item for me. We should actually write that down
Dude, it's in the docs,
publish
man.
it.
Come
Look at
on.
that. Yeah, Sydney, Mumbai, in India West, and then Japan, Santiago, Chile, and then the usual suspects in North America: Dallas, IAD, NYC, SJC, Amsterdam, London, Frankfurt. I think we went with Toronto over Chicago for topology reasons, and Brazil to round it out. But we'll get that list published because it's already obviously a little more than I can rattle off, and it's only going to go up.
Cool. All right. That's domains and DNS. Evidently, we've made them as sexy as we can. This is like the top level sexy. I'm not sure how much more. Maybe Tom has some ideas. He has some things he wants out of that. But these are obviously super critical for like doing a bunch of other stuff. I don't think we were going to show today the process of sort of validating and showing ownership and proxies and whatever, but that'll be something we show end to end in a future meetup and let people just play around with and use. So solving some pain points here. Brian, anything else that you got on your kind of vision and roadmap that you want to share with the group here? Ballot style and whatnot.
I mean, the news is that sort of like starting in Q1, we want to do a lot more with the domain connect feature, which is this way to like automatically configure DNS records at really any wherever that user has their DNS hosted. We can just automatically push an update, an incremental update to their zone. That'd be awesome. The thing that we'd like to do here is really make this an open source solution. And there are just a small handful of commercial operators that are almost like just too expensive for everyday use. And so it'd be nice to have this domain connect feature that really anyone can use. And I like to get a good community around it as well.
Tom's wish list is growing. I love it. Keep track. Thanks, Tom. Cool. Hey, B5, you're here. Welcome.
Hello. Let me turn on my hello.
Oh my gosh, he found his camera. That's amazing. Nice to see
I'll
you.
just
How's it going? Have a late night last night?
Oh my gosh, yeah. working on getting a demo
You're like,
work
oh
today.
god.
I did not make the demo deadline, but I've
It's
written a lot
okay.
of
That's
code.
what deadline is. It's all good. Well, let's have a conversation. I think Manish and Zach are going to kick us off. So before they kind of dive into what we're working on together, you just want to introduce yourself and make sure folks understand what y'all up to.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. My Zoom name says B5. My name in real life is Brendan. Most of the time, I'm just B5 on the internet. It's easier when you work in open source as much as we do because most people can just type that GitHub handle and they get a more meaningful link to our work. But I work at a company called Number Zero, and we work on an open source networking library called Iroh. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about how there's kind of a peanut butter and chocolate with what Datum is doing.
I think we decided B5 that we were going to say chocolate and pistachio is the.
Oh, right, because it's a Dubai chocolate is the name.
Because Dubai chocolate, right? Before we get into all the goodness, can you just give some history on why you started Number Zero and like what's the kind of mission and what you guys,
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. We come from the world of like really thinking that the network drives the networking stack in particular echoes a lot of what happens up at the top of the internet. We are my co-founder and I kind of grew out of the interplanetary file system or IPFS space, and we basically started the company trying to make a version of that worked, which is meant over the long period actually really focusing on a reliable peer-to-peer networking layer. And we think that this is pretty critical because the advantage of peer-to-peer is not necessarily the history that you know, but more the ability to build networks that are scale independent. And they have a lot of really interesting characteristics when you can start to push capabilities onto the actual end devices. And that's kind of where we drive a lot of our work. And so Iroh is, in our view, an effort to try and make a piece of technology that just makes the connection layer really, really seamless. And our core vision there is imagine Internet Protocol version 7 has shipped, and we now dial public keys instead of IPs. And that can be a substrate for identity. That can be a substrate for building a galactic Mimi room, a number of other wonderful tricks that these wizards know about. But I think the idea of being able to go up into identity from a public key pair infrastructure and down into dialability that is reliable and then works anywhere is kind of the core abstraction that we think is a contribution to the world.
How's it going? Pretty good?
It's going good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Project's going well. We're going to ship 1.0 in Q1 of next year. It's been growing like a weed. It's on tens of millions of devices. We run on ESP32s. We run on old Linux hardware stuffed in somebody's closet. We run on Android, iOS. We're in a number of prominent apps in the App Store and have been getting a number of use. And the feedback around the abstraction is really fun. The idea, it kind of brings back some of the joy to networking where you can just have a library that says, hey, give me an endpoint. And you can treat the whole world like localhost. That is, I think, the thing that warms our hearts the most has been the open source community embracing that trickery and being able to build new stuff with that is kind of why we started the whole thing in the first place.
Yeah, well, that's pretty awesome. Congrats. 1.0 coming soon. It's big.
Yeah, it'll come with a bunch of stuff, in particular, support for quick multipath. All of Iroh is built on IETF specs wherever possible. We use one non-IETF spec, and that's for uploading public keys to DNS servers. But beyond that, everything is straight the spec, and it's taken us about a year to implement quick multipath properly in Rust, which is a slog that is worth it in the long run, but it has taken us some time.
Yeah, got to pay your bills, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll let Manish and Zach kind of take it over from here. Thanks so much, B5.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll kick it off. We were going to try to do some demos, but it was very, very ambitious. So appreciate you, B5, for staying up late to work on it. So this is like a really exciting culmination and partnership that we've been working on with Number Zero. So this came out of a meeting a couple months ago where we're like, wait, we could take this big giant global edge proxy and our approach to the broader internet and pair it with this crazy, cool, pervasive connection protocol and make something very, very useful for our customers and also for us because we're selfish. And one of the key things that just kind of kept reminding me was, I think it was our front end team over in Indonesia continually sending around links to their local builds and being like, hey guys, I wanted to show you this thing, but I can't show it to you because it's behind my little computer firewall. And also I went offline and I changed it and, whatever, right? And this is just kind of a pain in the bucket. So we said, hey, what can we do? Thanks to Mr. Josh Reese, who's now a Datum alumni, making amazing stuff happen over at Cisco these days. Decided how can we pair our kind of global DNS and the ability to give you a domain and proxy out at the edge with a tunneling service that you could use. And we have a couple of goals around this. One is just to make the life of developers better so that they can work in teams and expose the work they're doing or expose their apps to third-party services that are local to their environments or behind some sort of a firewall. I believe, Tom and came up with some of these about a year ago saying we should really have something like this. And the other is really, we've seen a big use case related to agentic environments and other real-time builds that need to have a GitHub action hit them or be able to establish connectivity in a very particular way. And in order to do that, you have to kind of pair this ephemerality of your local desktop or behind something or an instant, dev environment with some persistence. And that's what our global edge network can do. So what we can do is maybe talk through what we're working on, but short thing is you're going to have a Datum desktop client here in a little bit. That Datum desktop client will also be able to run headless in any kind of a Linux environment as well. The nice thing, and we'll talk a little bit about the architecture. I've been learning more about the Rust community over the past couple months. But some really nice cross portability there that we can take and bring some functionality to people's dev environments daily that can interact with our edge cloud, and then also take it into a bunch of different environments. What makes me excited is last month, was it Drew, when we were doing our meetup, and you just couldn't put anything on the TV because you weren't on the right Wi-Fi network exposed to I don't know what it was. We were trying to AirPlay. It was really hard. And it was actually talking about, Quick and how we could do this in a more persistent way and have local hosts. Man, we would have really died to have that feature at that time. So I guess with that in mind, super ironically, maybe what I can do is just query you for a couple of questions, Brendan, about our approach here. So can you just give an overview of the build that we're trying to, for the architecture that we're doing for the Datum desktop, and we can walk through where we're at right now.
Totally. I think that's a great place to start. And so the first couple of things that we've had to build for this project, and it's part of the reason why this demo is taking a second to put together, is implementing the actual sort of proper foundations for a conversation between good, solid cloud infrastructure that is engineered the right way and this harebrained world of dialing by key. And so the first thing is building out support for HTTP Connect on top of all of Iroh, which allows you to then basically say, hey, I have a tunnel and I want to be able to tunnel through the internet, and then on the outside of that internet exit point, talk to different services. And then we want to be able to lock that down, obviously, which is, just assume that it's locked down properly for the purpose of this conversation. But the other huge thing that Datum has done that I think is designed quite well has been extending, in particular, the Kubernetes configuration control plane for how do we actually introduce the notion of being able to dial a key. And I think the actual contributions, this is on a public proposal right now that is on the improvement proposals of the Datum repos. And I personally think the design is super elegant. And so to what you're referencing, Zach, the idea that you could have, hey, I'm going to have an ephemeral container. It's going to spin up a key. It's going to create its identity out of nowhere. It's going to be able to you can credential access to that and be able to dial any other service. And in the scenario where for some reason that is sitting on a computer that is in a boardroom, if we need to, we can just establish a direct connection between the exit point of that tunnel and the entry point of another. And so this opens up a whole world of possibilities, jumping directly into machines that are running in the cloud. This means sharing stuff between partners and peers at your organization just as naturally as you would, where your latency will get faster when you are physically closer to each other. And all of this will happen under an abstraction that is just dialing keys. And so under the hood, you don't have to think about how that connection is happening. We'll just get you the fastest, most reliable connection possible. The big challenge we have with Iroh as a peer-to-peer library is it really lacks a stable core infrastructure that makes the whole thing kind of shine. And this is where what we mean by the peanut butter and chocolate stuff is like, cool, now that Kubernetes can kind of speak dialing keys, we can do really, really, really interesting control plane definitions that say, hey, let's orchestrate around a set of keys. And this opens up future work where those keys could represent other organizations, and that could represent permissions expressed across other organizations. And having all of this
hearing for connections.
Exactly. And so we can do really interesting stuff where you have the combined ephemerality of being able to just provision a key anywhere and then build up authentication around that, have that connectivity be wherever you want it, but then on the other side, be able to say, oh, we can use those as stable identifiers as well for how we want to interface with inside orgs, outside orgs. And so the ability to have really, really, really dynamic networks that just naturally figure out how to talk to each other is kind of the name of the game. And we think a tunnel is just like the best way to express that, because you moving around with your laptop and just being able to naturally share what's on your laptop as part of a local host with stable URLs that you can selectively turn on and off is a really solid win.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, we've been dreaming about a virtualized Meet Me room that allows different types of apps and services and cloud companies to connect with each other for a while. What really is nice about this and why we're going to try it first with a desktop beyond it's useful to us because we're very much in dev mode. So we have this, is that we get to practice like a lot of random things trying to connect to something, which looks a lot like our target customers would be infrastructure providers or SaaS companies who may be spinning up thousands or millions of databases. Well, each one of those looks like a client that might need to have its own bespoke set of private connections. And what we want to make sure is that like said database as a service company with said front end company can spin up millions of virtualized backbones and have connections that can come into those very ephemerally, because we see this happening with agents on one side, where there might be a huge parallelism of connectivity that needs to happen. We want to provide an elegant way for people to be able to curate that. We're going to start with us just being annoying humans. We think the desktop app is useful for us. Luckily, this will transfer pretty easily to a bunch of other types of devices or instances. Could you, Brendan, just talk a little bit about our choice in technologies here? So needless to say, Iroh is very Rust-based, so we're going to use kind of an overall Rust framework, for developing this, and then some GUI stuff as well. Could you just talk through where we're at? And I would like to touch on authentication. We need to talk about how you auth, right?
And security.
Yes. Yeah. So we can start at the network layer of auth and then move up to the OAuth bits.
The human, the thing. The bits.
So the entire system, all of Iroh is TLS 1.3, operating with secure, running Rust TLS specifically. And so we're excited about that. And on the Rust side, because Rust TLS is now being used.
I believe it's pronounced Russells.
Okay? It is Russells. Yeah. I know.
Podcast.
Yeah, I know. I just can't bring myself to do it. My brain, but yes, Russells, you're right. Russells is going to be, as far as we understand it, one of the core drivers inside of Windows. Windows is switching over to Russells. That was one of the big announcements they made in September of this year. And so in terms of secure TLS implementations, we think we're in good company. And that gives us a really nice starting point. Iroh does no special cryptography. It is literally just delegating directly to TLS for all of its security. Moving up into the app itself, you probably have this like core question of like, how do you authenticate? There's a OAuth-based authentication mechanism, which will then allow you to credentialize yourself into Datum and be able to say, hey, how do we, and you can then just interact with the Kubernetes API that is exposed directly there based on your permission level, right? And so if you're allowed to do that, great, you'll be able to pull it off. And then that will use the GUI, which is, we're using Dioxys for that. And we're using, again, this is kind of, they've allowed us to go full Rust on this one, which gives us a really nice, really sleek, low overhead in terms of the actual consumption on your device. In production builds right now, it's using like sub 15 megs of RAM and a couple of sockets. And so things are really crisp in terms of the consumption. Shipping it as a menu bar app. The headless CLI is, just, again, that's just going to be a Rust CLI. But the maintenance of that will all be stateful on the edge and constructed so that you will be able to sort of construct these proxies right from within the CLI itself, observe traffic moving through any of the proxies you declare. And yeah, in long term, that does open up things like mobile and other places if we want to get fancy with it. No plans for that yet, but it's a possibility.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
And if the human auth or the machine auth, this is just going to redirect you standard OAuth into the rest of our stack, right, for identity. Yeah. So that's all going to be pretty plain vanilla. But how are we going to handle this for machine instances or if we had to go headless?
Yes. And so the intention for that is to use Spiffy, which is, I like to think of them as object capability models. Basically, this creates tokens that are one-off that can delegate capabilities to keys. And so you can say, hey, you exist, you're this endpoint, I'm going to hand you a token that is going to allow you to do stuff. And that can be scoped to whatever actions are available and as necessary. And the nice thing about the object capability model is you can get down to hey, let's do that for a single request. And now you have a token that only lasts for the lifespan of what you need, and then it doesn't sort of like create this gaping security hole replay attack problem. You can then go up into other spaces. The huge other win of Spiffy and the object capability model approach to authentication, if you've ever worked with JWTs, they're a very similar family of authentication, is you can do them with passive non-network interactivity. And so you can have situations where you can authorize stuff within a certain time frame. We always use time bounds for this. but it gives you a really nice capability to say like, hey, you're at some device, you're going to have weird intermittent connectivity, and you could still perform authorization actions. And that applies just as equally to your CI jobs as it does to your friend's laptop. They're both stuff where we might issue a credential and then we might lose connectivity, and that's still going to enforce authorization.
Yep. Very cool. That's great. Sorry, I interrupted. I think Manish, you were trying to
No, yeah, no. Just the next, I was going to say about, from a zero trust security perspective, it's a great play for, people have been struggling with segmentation, micro segmentation of networks, and this really collapses to a segment of one, which really solves that problem, right? So there is no sprawl or lateral movement of threads if your network is compromised. So that's something
Yeah.
cool. This.
Yeah, what we never want to hear is how do we create more ACLs, network
Yeah.
ACLs, so that we can make sure that this is not that. And so the idea here is just like make a ton of individual private networks, connections. So I think
Yeah,
this
and
is
there is also an efficiency pickup here where, because we are assigning and delegating to the key that represents the secure connection, this is the first time that you actually know that every packet matches the authorization scheme, which is not something that you can sort of like do normally by saying like, hey, I'm delegating to that public key and that public key is allowed to do this. And then every single packet is encrypted with that same private key pair. So you have this kind of continually enforced authorization that is also sort of reducing the overhead of the ACL side of things. You can alleviate the need to hit databases to understand whether you're allowed to do stuff, which is
expensive, heavy, and slow often. That's cool. Well, I'd be super curious if anybody here who's building in distributed systems, like, or releasing agents or apps, serverless things, whatever, across clouds, how you're dealing with this kind of connectivity. Probably if you're just using over the internet, if you're just, using standard kind of HTTP or TLS connectivity, or if you're establishing tunnels or WireGuard sessions or related. So, if anybody's working on that or dealing with that, we've heard a lot from end user customers of our clouds that they have an increasing need for kind of solving a privacy and security conundrum while releasing a lot of apps into the wild. And by apps, programs, agents, serverless things, intelligence, etc. And then at the same time, kind of guaranteeing provenance about what it can talk to and where. So we believe that the whole whitelist this IP, because that's where it will be coming from, game of SaaS companies, probably not going to be the answer in the future. So this is why we're investing in this work. Okay. I have one other question, if nobody else does, on this, which is, given the peer-to-peer aspect of Iroh, right? So help me understand, A, why people use that today, and how would it work in this type of scenario where you might have other peers that this could go through or connect with. So just explain to the broader group here the peer-to-peer aspect of Iroh, which is kind of like where this whole protocol started, right? So
yeah, totally. Hopefully, my internet is not totally jank. Okay, good. This is not the peer-to-peer of yesteryear. A lot of this is using we're using relays and encryption for a lot of this intentionally. But the upside of, how should I explain this? So there's a couple of things you can do here in terms of configurability. You don't have to be overly concerned about this being exposing things that you otherwise wouldn't want to expose. You still have total control over your network topology, and even arguably even more so through Datum. The peer-to-peer side of it, the core thing that we get out of this, the way I like to think about peer-to-peer in the modern sense, is pushing more capabilities to the edge. Right. And so this is just like, hey, how do we have the edge be able to do more stuff so that we can have authorization move to the edge, so that we can have, as you said, instead of whitelisting IPs, we want to be able to have the edge understand what's allowed and what isn't allowed. And so when we say peer-to-peer, we don't really even think about the connection topology. That's an abstraction at this point. We should just be getting you the fastest connection you could possibly have, which often includes, if you're both sitting in the same location, then you should just not be bothering a data center with your conversation. That should just happen directly through the local router. That's nice, but like that's honestly not the typical scenario. Most of us are actually geographically spread out all the time. What is interesting about peer-to-peer is it gives you, when you start thinking about it this way, we almost always think in terms of client and server, and we have really, really thin, really, really dumb clients that don't have any capacity for state, and then we have really, really thick servers. And that works for a lot of contexts, but I think if you actually take a close look at the majority of your modern workloads, you have this like hodgepodge of a bunch of things going on where you have, you know, you have a CI action that is actually doing a whole bunch of work that is posting and maintaining state and synchronizing things. And the world actually gets a lot simpler when you start to just take those .ts and server.ts and you just put them in the same file and look at each other and say, hey, this is the request and this is a response. That's when the magic really starts to show up. And the secret is that's how you can hit levels of scale that are bonkers. We have users that are running apps that have millions of concurrent users. In particular, we have a video streaming app that is in the top 50 of the App Store that has like 1.2 million daily active users and is running this off of 6 relay servers and with 90% of the traffic moving directly between the devices. And so the amount of scale that you can push and the amount of data that you can imagine video streaming, so like we're talking petabyte scale on a daily basis, normal, but being able to move that amount of data around in a way that has just a much better scaling footprint is really the magic. Our public relay servers cost us $1,000 a month. We're supporting on the order of hundreds of thousands of devices. And so you can access these really exciting patterns that just aren't possible by other means. And the core of that is just coordinating keys instead of coordinating, IPs.
How does the performance of that look compared to like a traditional sort of
client server
CDN delivery for the streaming video customers in particular? It's a pretty
thanks for the
interesting use case when you get it to work.
Yeah, it is both faster and cheaper. And that's the fun part, right? We have less egress to the cloud because we're moving bytes around the edge, and we're hunting for the lowest latency at all times. And so if we can find a better peer and connect with them a little faster, then we'll use that. And so we have kind of really the characteristic that you want at all times. What is super exciting is and why I think we're really pumped about Datum long-term is we are a software play. We are at the whim of the network topology as it exists. The ability to sort of say, hey, at the beginning of this call, we have a bunch of points of presence, and we can maybe tap into networks that can coordinate that and do more interesting and more quick backhaul. The idea of having a global network that can guarantee certain latency bounds is just really, really, really exciting long term. And so that's what leads me to be super fired up about one day shipping a custom transport that lets you say, hey, I'm going to use Datum to back all of my stuff that touches the backbone, and then everything that can move along the edges, that'll be aerospace. But that to me is how we can ship networks that are faster, cheaper, and competitive in places where you would normally have to be deploying built infra.
Yeah, I think, and from thinking about like agent discovery and application discovery and connecting through the edge, the Datum edge, through gateways that can actually facilitate that connection, and also to add all kinds of custom logic to, say, an AI agent talking to an LLM, right? In addition to being privacy preserving, would also allow you to add value, like for Datum customers, partners, and providers.
Yep. Cool, man. Well, I got one other thing I wanted to preview for everybody. If anybody here works in a team across places, we aim to have the early build of Datum Desktop in the next couple weeks, maybe a month or two for broader release, public, beta, super alpha, right? We'll try. And the use case that we're trying to solve, which we would love other people who are having this, is if you have a distributed team of 5 or 10 engineers, we're probably not ready for like hundreds of engineers who are running builds or participating in software together, and maybe are limited through existing things like ngrok or related. We would love to give custom domains plus the ability to see all of your colleagues. We've invested a lot in team members and permissions and projects and resources, and we want to allow you to see B5's laptop build of his latest trunk that he's been working off of. Anytime and we want to be able to know if it's online, if he's asleep or whatever. And so there are some collaborative tools there that we really run into all the time where we're just not able to share as much as we want to and work together on complex systems. So that's kind of like where we're going with Datum Desktop. It'll be probably fine for people individually initially, and then we'd like to see teams who are trying to work together across systems. And then we'll start to tie in the infrastructure services that people have in a headless way or maybe via other connectivity methods into that same view. So if y'all are doing that, reach out. I think we would love to work with you. Manish and Brett have been kind of leading this work. And since we're going to be trying to find a couple of supportive teams who are okay with rough edges as we figure out our use case here.
Yep.
Oh, cool. Great. Well, that's that. If any of you have apps that might take advantage of Iroh, reach out to B5. You know where to find him on the GitHubs or on the Discords or on the other places. And if you're a team that is interested in working on this with us, let us know so we can help you into the process. All right, Jacob.
I think we're good unless anyone wants to like say happy holidays and catch you in the new year. So I think I just said it actually.
Yeah.
So
Happy holidays, and would love
look
to hear
up,
from developers, everybody out there, their
yeah.
experiences.
Appreciate all of you who have kind of spent some of your time with us this year. It's been a growing year for us. We're super excited for what we can do next year, and look forward to helping you and having your help. So thanks for everything. Appreciate
Thanks.
you all. Okay.
And reach
See
out
you.
on
Thank
Discord.
you. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.